Hi, my name is Susan Spreitzer, and I am a web designer, have been for 10 years, and I'm here to talk to you today about getting started with HTML. I'm not so bold as to think that I can turn anyone into an HTML programmer in a brief video, but I can give an overview so that you have a general understanding of how web pages and building web pages and publishing them to the internet works. We will learn a little bit about how to write HTML code, how to use styles to format your pages, and how to publish your pages. Before we start coding HTML, it is important to remember that the best websites are not created by one person alone. Even if you alone prepare the images and write the code for the site, you still need to work in concert with other people, such as your client, the executives at your company, IT and technical support professionals, and most importantly, the target audience for your site. No matter what the site is, it will have a number of stakeholders who need to be heard before you start coding. Planning your site well will get you the best results. Why build a site that misses the mark and so is ignored or never updated? Be sure to ask critical questions such as, who will maintain the site after it's built? Good planning will also help you avoid scope creep. Scope creep is the unanticipated expansion of a project after building of a website begins. Scope creep is the result of adding features and functionality to a site even before the site is launched that go well beyond the original project scope. Scope creep's favorite line is, "Oh, that's a great idea. Can we do that too?" Great ideas and site enhancements are fabulous, but it is equally fabulous to take a little extra time in the planning stage of a site to thoroughly discuss and prioritize all of the great ideas that come your way. Clearly define the scope of your project before you begin building it. Great new ideas will still come your way while you are building the site, but with good planning, you will at least know where the site's first construction benchmark is. This will help you avoid significant unnecessary costs, delays, and stress. This is a time when that collaboration we just talked about is especially important. Also, great ideas are best when they are implemented as part of a larger plan. With our team and our plan in place, it is time to start building the website. Let's start with a basic definition and quick facts about HTML. HTML is Hypertext Markup Language. It is actually fairly simple and is the foundation on which web pages are built. Even if you don't use HTML in your daily work now, you may in the future. HTML was developed by Tim Berners-Lee in 1990 and became popularly used in the mid-1990s. Many HTML and web editor software options are available, with Adobe Dreamweaver being the gold standard. But it is possible to create an HTML web page using the simple plain text word processing programs such as Notepad and TextEdit that come standard with all computers. As a side note, do not use Microsoft Word or any other high-end word processing program to code HTML, as that will cause you problems. Before we can start coding HTML though, we need to create a folder for the website's files. You can create this folder anywhere, in any directory on your computer. In this example, I have called the main folder My Site. In a moment, I will create this basic file structure on my iMac, but the same basic principles apply to a Windows machine. The example.html file located within the My Site folder starts as just a blank document created using the Mac program called TextEdit and saved with a .html extension. The Images folder contains the one photo I will need for the example page. I do not have a logo or additional graphics or photos for this example page, so my Images folder will have only one file. Lastly, TextEdit is used to create another blank document called styles.css. Now let's go ahead and set this up. If you use a Mac and TextEdit to create your web page, you will need to check three preferences in TextEdit. Go to, Preferences, New Document, Make sure plain text radio button is selected. Make sure smart quotes is unchecked. Make sure display HTML files as HTML code instead of formatted text is checked. And that's it. It's time to begin creating your website. We're going to start by creating the files and folders that you'll need. A sample file structure is on the left side of the screen, and you can see that it's very simple. It has only 3 folders and 3 files. You can create your files in any directory you want on your computer. You can use a Windows machine and Notepad. Today I'm going to use a Mac machine and TextEdit. So I'm going to start by creating the folders. And I'm going to create the folders in my demonstration directory. So I'm going to create my site. And then in the My Site folder, I'm going to create images. And styles. Then go back to the demonstration folder, and you can see that I have the 3 folders that I need. Now we're going to work with the 3 files. I'm going to use TextEdit, as I said, and start with example.html. So I'm going to launch TextEdit and just create a new blank file called example.html. File, new, file, save. Example.html. And you want to use the HTML extension instead of TXT or any other extension that your computer might provide for you. And it needs to be saved to the My Site folder. So I'm going to go ahead and save that and close it. And you can see that I've got example.html in the My Site folder, just as shown in the diagram. Then I'm going to create another new file, and it's going to be blank as well, so I'm just going to save that. And this is going to be saved to the styles folder, and this one is going to be called styles.css. And I'm going to close that. Last file I'm going to work with is spacestationmeteors.jpg. That's just a regular JPG file. So I just searched on it, copy it, and then I'm going to go back to my demonstration and the images folder and just paste it in there. And then back to the demonstration folder to double check and make sure it's done correctly, and it is. Now it's worth talking about here that the folder names in this kind of file structure are optional. You can name your folders anything you like. But be aware that there's a strong tradition of having images in a folder called images and style sheets in a styles folder. No matter what website you work on, you're probably going to find images and styles. And if you work on a website, whoever comes after you to update it, they're going to be looking for images and styles folders. So while there's no big technical reason why you need images and styles folders, it's probably a good idea to use those customary names. So there you have it. There's your file structure. You can move on now and start coding HTML. We have built our file structure, so we are now ready to code HTML. At its most basic, a web page is created by making a list of everything on the page and then marking up that list by adding tags to identify each element on the page as a headline, paragraph, image, or something else. Here is sample code for a very simple HTML page. The HTML code is on the left, and the web page generated by the code is on the right. Notice that the HTML code consists of a series of elements tagged as HTML, head, body, H1, image, and A. Notice how less than and greater than characters are used as angle brackets. For example, the headline here, a sample web page, begins with an H1 tag with H1 enclosed in angle brackets. The headline ends with a closing H1 tag. Notice that a slash is included in this and all closing tags. Continuing, the paragraph is enclosed in P tags. While most elements, such as the headline, have opening and closing tags, some elements, such as the image element, which displays the photo and uses an IMG tag, are self-contained. The BR tag, which creates a line break or carriage return, is also self-contained. Also notice that an element can contain several other elements. An example of this is the body element that contains the H1P, image, and A elements. Here are some additional popular HTML tags. They help us go beyond paragraph, text, and simple photos. And they help us prepare multi-column layouts such as you would see in a newspaper. So let's go through a couple of these. The first one on the list is UL, and that stands for unordered lists, and that would be used to prepare a bulleted list like you would see in a PowerPoint presentation. And then the next item on the list is OL, and that stands for ordered list. So that's any list that's numbered 1, 2, 3, or lettered ABC, or even with Roman numerals 1, 2, 3. And then the third item on the list is LI for list items. So the way this works is the UL will contain a number of LI elements, or the OL will contain a number of LI elements. And the LI elements contain the names of the items in your list. So if you were making a list of fruit, for example, you would have a UL for a bulleted list because you don't necessarily need to number the fruit. And then you would have an LI element, and the first LI element might be apples, and the second LI element might be oranges, and the third LI element might be strawberries. And then you would use your closing UL element. So a UL element has a number of LI elements. So does an OL element have a number of LI elements. The next item on the list is tables. And that's exactly what it sounds like. If you want to create a table on your web page, then this is the element you use. And within the table element, you can use TR to create your rows of your tables. And within your TR element, you would use a number of TD elements to show the information in the cells. So you've got table element that contains a number of TR elements, and the TR elements contain a number of TD elements. Next on the list is division, and that's how you divide your pages into sections. And there are a lot more elements you can use, and you can read about those at w3schools.com. Let's review the file structure that we talked about earlier. We start with a folder called My Site, and in My Site we have example.html, and we have an images folder with space station meteors.jpg, and we have a styles folder with styles.css. Let's begin by opening the example.html file. Remember, we're opening it with TextEdit. And we're going to move that down a little bit. And zoom in just a little bit so that you can see what's going on. Now, just so that you didn't have to watch me type, I pre-entered all of the code into the file. So this is the same code that we saw a few moments ago. Now let's open the example file in a web browser. This happens to be my default browser, which is Safari. Look closely at the page and you will see that the title and main headline for the page are two different things. You can take a look at the code and you can see that the title is my web page and the main headline is a sample web page. If you go back up to the browser, you can see my web page is listed here above the main headline, and the main headline is at the very top of the main content area of the screen. Now let's go back to TextEdit and make a change so that we can see how the browser and the code work together. So I'm going to change the title from my web page to our web page. And I'm going to change the main headline from a sample web page to our sample web page. Then I'm going to save that and refresh my browser. And you can see that the changes are made. The main headline now says our sample web page, and this text in the title bar above the page says our web page. Now let's move on to the image. The image in this web page is of space station meteors. You can see in the code that to display a photo like this, you type out the path to the image. So if you look here, you can see that in the images folder, there's a file called spacestationmeteors.jpg. So in the images folder, there's spacestationmeteors.jpg. You can also see in the code that I have set the image to a width of 300 pixels with a height of 200 pixels. I've also provided alternative text. Now, alternative text describes whatever the photo or the graphic is. It's used for two things. One, the search engines use it, but also screen readers on computers used by the visually impaired can actually read these alternative text words out loud to the site visitor. The final element on the page is the link to NASA. This link is created by using an A tag. A stands for anchor. And it's very simple to create a link. You just use the format shown here, the opening angle bracket A, href equals quote, then the address of the page that you want to link to, and that can be a page outside of your website and it can also be a page inside your website. Then you close the quote and close the angle bracket. Then you type the text that needs to appear on the screen, and then you close the anchor element. We'll make one more change in the code before we leave this demonstration. I will surround the final element, the link, with a p tag. And the reason that I'm going to do this is I want this Visit NASA link to always be below the photo, no matter what the screen width is. So I'm going to put a p tag right there, and then I'm going to close the other p tag, and then I'm going to save this file. Then I'm going to refresh my browser, and you'll see that the Visit NASA link moves to below the photo. Next, we'll talk about how to format and style this web page. Once you've created your page, it's time to format the page with styles. This can include working with fonts, colors, and laying out the page in sections. You can set styles at 3 different levels. The first level applies a style sheet to as many pages as you like, or even to the entire site. The second level applies to a specific page, and the third level, inline styles, applies to a single element on a page. Web designers like to use style sheets as often as they can. One reason for this is that style sheets are created as separate files from the HTML files, and therefore the HTML page, each HTML page that loads more quickly for the visitor. So you're not having to include a lot of code in your HTML page. You're just linking it to a style sheet, so the HTML page loads more quickly. Another reason that using style sheets is good is style sheets keep things consistent from page to page, and style sheets make it easy to quickly change the look and feel of an entire site. Using style sheets also keeps the code simple and the site easy to update. So you may not be the last person to ever work on a particular website, so you have to keep in mind that other people are going to come behind you, and you want to make it as easy as possible for them. So using style sheets does that. Here's a demonstration of how styles work. Style sheets apply to as many pages as you like. They can apply to one page, or they can apply to every page on the site. To create a style sheet, type your style information, such as in the first example above, into a text editor and save as a .css file. Then link your CSS style sheet to your HTML page, as in the second example. One HTML page can have multiple style sheets. For example, maybe you have a style sheet that applies to the whole site, and then you have another style sheet that applies just to one page. Just list them both and it will work. But you want to be sure to list your style sheet for the entire site first, and then your style sheet for your specific page second. Page styles apply to one page at a time. Create them by adding a style tag to the head section of the page. In this example, the style tag sets all H1 elements to Verdana, but all to the Verdana font, and all P elements also to Verdana. Notice that the font Arial is also mentioned, as is the general sans serif designation. This is because not all browsers automatically display all fonts. So we give the browsers fallbacks. In this example, Verdana is our first choice of font, Arial is our second choice, and any sans serif font is our third choice. The good news is that all the major browsers display Verdana, so the chances of a browser having to use Arial or a generic sans serif font are very slim. Inline styles apply to one element, such as a headline or a paragraph at a time. Create them by adding a style attribute to the tag to be formatted. And you can see how that works here. So for this particular headline, this is an example headline. This style attribute that reads style equals font family Verdana sans serif font size 20 px applies to that headline on that page only. So that's an inline style. It applies to that line only. This is where we left off with our example web page. Now we will talk about how to work with backgrounds, colors, fonts, and other attributes to make it look a little better. First, think about the way web pages are often divided into sections, such as a block of text or a sidebar. Each section can be marked with a div tag, and div stands for division, and it's abbreviated DIV. Even though our example web page really has only one division, the main content, we still need to use a div tag to mark it so we can give it margins and its own background color. So an opening div tag goes between the opening body element and the H1 element, like so. And the closing div tag goes just above the closing body element. So everything between the opening div tag and the closing div tag is part of our division. We also need to give our division a name, so we'll do that. We'll just call it main content. Now let's open the blank CSS file. And again, we're opening it with text edit. We'll bring that down here. It's considered best practices to make a note at the top of a CSS file as to what file or what site it relates to. So we're going to do that now. Okay, let me pump up the font a little bit so that you can see that. So I typed a slash and then an asterisk and then styles, for example, .html and an asterisk and a slash. And you can make notes like that anywhere in your style sheet. Now let's give the elements of our page some colors and styles and work with that a little bit. Since the body tag applies to the entire page, we'll start there. So this is the body tag. So we'll start by typing body, and then we'll type curly brace, and another curly brace, and we'll type a couple of attributes, what's called attributes, between the curly braces. So the first one we're going to talk about, we're going to type, is a background color. So you type background, colon, and then the color, and then a semicolon. And then we're going to use the Verdana font. So we'll type font family. And then we'll give it sans serif as a backup. and we'll save the style sheet. Okay, now blue, just saying blue for a background will work, but it's not very precise. What particular color of blue do you want? And different browsers could use a different color blue than another one. One browser could use a different color blue than another one. So let's Google and find what's called a hexadecimal number for a precise blue that we're interested in using. So we'll Google hex, H-E-X, numbers for blue. And we'll just pick something here. We'll click on this and scroll down, find a nice blue. Oh, let's see here. Let's just do a navy blue. I know this font is very small in this video, but right here this says navy blue, and right here this provides the hexadecimal number for this blue. So I'm just going to copy that number. And then I'm going to replace the word blue with that number. So that's how you get a hexadecimal number. You can also, if you have a photo that you want to use a particular color from that photo, or a graphic or a logo or something that you need a precise color, you can open that image in Photoshop and click on the color within the image, and Photoshop will give you the hexadecimal number for that color. And now we'll also set the headline to brown. So we'll type H1 color, and then I've already got a hexadecimal number for brown, so we'll just use that. So that hexadecimal number 660000 is a brown. And we'll save that. Now, if you go back now to your browser and you refresh the page, nothing will happen. That is because the page is being generated by the HTML, the example HTML file, and the example HTML file is not yet linked to the style sheet that we just created. So let's link the HTML file to the style sheet that we just made. And you do that by, in the head section, typing something like this. So we're linking to a style sheet, and it's a text/CSS style sheet, and it's located in the styles/CS styles folder, and the file is named styles.css. So let's save this and refresh and see if we have any success. And we do. We now have our blue background and our brown headline. But that doesn't look very good because the black type and the brown type on the blue background just it doesn't work. It's really hard to read. So what we will do is we will put the content of the page, the headline, the paragraph, the photo, the link, on a white background. The margins will stay blue, but the background will be white. And this is how we do that. First, we go back to the styles.css file. And then we give the main content div, which again is right here, some information. So we'll say div pound, and it's the main content div. So we'll give it a background color of white. And 6Fs is the hexadecimal number for white. We'll give it a maximum width of 300 pixels. We'll create a little white space around the information on the page. So we'll give it a little white space around the paragraph and the photo and the headline. And that's called padding. I'll give it 15 pixels of padding. And we want the main content area to be centered across the window. So we're going to do that by typing margin auto. Now you can provide specific margins for any division in your site, but for this example, we're just going to let the system automatically generate it. But we could say 100 px, or we could say 20 px, and the system would do that. So let's go ahead and save this. And we'll go back to the browser and refresh, and there you are. And that's how style sheets work. So we're going to move on then to talk about page styles. So we'll go back to the example HTML file, and we'll remove the link to the style sheet. That way we're back to where we were before. So I'm going to save the example HTML file and refresh the browser, and we're back to where we were before. Now to do page styles, you use a style element, a style tag within the headline, within the head tag, style tag within the head tag. And you provide information that its type equals text, CSS. And then at that point, you can type style information between, within the style tag. So instead of typing all this out again, we'll just copy and paste it from the old style sheet. And then we'll save style sheet and refresh our browser, and you'll see we've got our styles back. Now lastly, we'll talk about inline styles. That's how page styles work. Well, lastly, we'll talk about inline styles. So I'm going to delete the style from the head tag so that we get, again, back to where we were. And then we'll put style information right in line with the element, whatever element we're working on. So for the body, we'll say background, we'll say style equals. And then we're going to give it a different blue right here, right now. Family Verdana sans serif. And then for the main content, and then for the H1. Okay, and we'll save that and refresh the browser, and we're back. So that's how style sheets, page styles, and inline styles work. Next, we'll move on and we'll find out how to publish our web page. Once you have created your site, you will need to publish it. To publish a website, you will need a domain name and hosting. Almost all hosting companies offer domain name registration. Domain names end with .something, such as google.com or redcross.org. Domain names must be purchased from an official registrar and cost about $20 a year. You will likely need to purchase hosting as well. Hosting is a little like renting an apartment. When you open a hosting account, you are essentially renting space on someone else's server where your website's files will live and be served to your site's visitors. You have many hosting companies to choose from. Hosting costs vary, but a basic plan can be purchased from a number of providers for less than $10 per month. Hosting companies will be happy to walk you through your purchase and setup of your hosting account. Keep in mind, you may not need to get a hosting account from a hosting company if your employer company, if the people you work for have an appropriate server. So if you're working in a large organization, ask your IT professionals. Publishing your website works similarly to publishing anything else on the internet, such as publishing a video to YouTube or a photo to Facebook. You have content such as a video or text that you want to post, and you upload that to the site, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, or your own site. It's simply copying your files up to a web hosting account. Downloading means copying them down from your hosting account to your computer. To upload and download files from the server, you will need what's called an FTP client. FTP stands for File Transfer Protocol. The client is a program that will allow you to manage your files. For the most part, FTP clients fall into one of three categories. The first is a standalone FTP client, such as FileZilla, that you can download for free. So you could create your website's files and then launch FileZilla to upload them to the internet. The second is built-in FTP. So you could build your site in Dreamweaver, for example, and then just click an icon within Dreamweaver to upload the files. The third is the FTP client provided by your host. Under this scenario, you would create your files and then log into your hosting company's website and use their file manager to upload your work. Once you have uploaded your files using any one of these three options, You can visit your website and see your work. FileZilla is the standalone FTP client that I mentioned earlier. You can see the screen has two main sections, with the left side of the section of the screen showing the files on the local computer, such as your own computer. The right side of the screen shows live files on the remote server. To upload the website files to the internet using FileZilla, just drag the new or updated file or multiple files from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen. This drag and drop operation is similar to how you would move files from one folder to another on your computer. But any file you drag and drop to upload is only copied to the server, not moved. The file stays on your computer but is also added or updated on the server. This is an example of the built-in FTP client within the Adobe software called Dreamweaver. This looks a lot like FileZilla, but notice that this time the remote files are on the left and the local files are on the right. So whatever FTP client you use, you need to pay attention to which side is local and which side is remote. Here is an example of an FTP client provided by a web host. In this instance, the web host is GoDaddy. To upload new or updated files, use the Upload button near the top of the screen. Just about all the web hosts will have similar FTP clients. Always check your work when you are done. It is possible for some elements of your page to look and work perfectly when you created them on your computer, while they have problems when used on other computers or browsers. So look at your page using multiple browsers and devices, and have other people check them on their computers too. W3Schools.com, Adobe.com, and Treehouse are all great resources. I refer to them often, especially when since browsers and devices change very quickly and I need to keep up. I will also be happy to help you with your web design questions. My contact information is on screen. Just drop me an email, give me a call, or visit my website. I also want to say a huge thank you to my clients who challenged me to do better every day, and to the many people I have learned from and continue to learn from along the way. Web design is dynamic and challenging, and that's what I love about it. So fabulous. You've learned how to create a web page using HTML. You've learned how to format it and style it, and you've learned how to publish it to the web. If you have any questions, please give me a call, drop me an email. I'll be glad to help you in whatever way I can. So that's it. It's time to say goodbye, and thanks again for watching.